On today's Film and Whiskey, it's bracket time, the most wonderful time of the year. We are taking our 32 movies and whittling them down to the final 8 in this episode. And we're trying a new whiskey from West Fork. That's all ahead on Film and Whiskey.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days
I know what we're gonna do today.
of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all.
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus. On DisneyPlus.Disney.com.
Well, hey, everybody, welcome into the Film and Whiskey podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
Brad, do you know what time it is?
Oh, baby. It is the
Dad.
bracket episodes. I am super pumped, man.
Listen, I only review movies to get to the bracket episode. If we could have a whole podcast that was just called Bracket Time and we just did brackets every week, actually, we should do that.
I was going to say.
Patent pending, Bracket Time.
Yeah, bracket time with Bob and Brad.
Oh, man, I love it, dude. So, folks, if you are new to Film and Whiskey, first of all, welcome into the show. Typically, what we do is we take a movie, a classic film, and we review it. Often, Brad is seeing that film for the first time. At the end of each episode, we give that movie a final score. And at the end of our 32-episode season, we take all of those movies, and based on our scores, we put them into a 32-seed bracket. And we determine what movie is the winner of our current season. Brad, tell the folks a little bit about this current season, because it was different than all the seasons we've done in the past.
Yeah, we have been going through to figure out what exactly makes a movie a modern classic. We are considering movies of the last now 21 years. It was the last 20 years when we started, last year. And basically saying, here are movies that hit one of 4 categories. The 4 categories being, was it nominated for Best Picture? Did it make over $100 million at the domestic box office? Is it in the Letterboxd Top 250 or the IMDb Top 250? And, we figured even if it hits one of those categories, it clearly has been popular enough to warrant some level of attention. That we should give it. So here we are. We have reviewed 32 movies. We probably should have kept track of how many we said yes to on the modern classic front.
It's all in the can, man. Or not in the can, but it's in the pipeline, Brad. We're going to do an episode in the off season where we revisit all these modern masterpieces and we decide what the 21st century canon really is on Film and Whiskey. So we'll get there, man. Have I done that work yet? Absolutely not.
Heck no.
Am I developing an episode in real time? I absolutely am.
For sure.
But folks, for this episode, the way the bracket works, like I said, at the end of every episode, we give a numerical score. We take those average scores, and then we have a pretty well-ranked system. But, after watching 32 movies, after spending well over half a year on this season, you kind of look back at some of the movies and you think, yeah, maybe I gave that a 9 instead of a 9.5, but I think ultimately I like that movie better than the 9.5. So Brad and I just kind of take the list of films, independent of our initial scores, and we just rank them based on what our heart tells us. You have to balance head and heart, Brad, and we try to do that here on Film and Whiskey. And so Brad comes up with his heart list, I come up with my heart list, and then we have our numerical scores from the episodes. We average all of those together, and then we come out with this nice ranked, tiered, seeded system that we have, which always inevitably makes for some crazy, crazy matchups in the bracket, Brad.
Yeah, it seems like every year there is 1 or 2 matchups, usually in the second round, where you're like, this is a number 8 versus a 14 or something. And yet one of us is like really standing hard for the number 14 seed. And you never know what's going to happen, man.
Yeah, 100%. Now, when we get into these matchups, we're going to go through this entire bracket. If Brad and I agree which movie is better, then it's great. Our friendship remains, and we are not at each other's throats. That movie moves on to the next round. If we are at a loggerheads here, Brad, we have to flip a coin, and we call that coin the coin of destiny.
It controls us all.
Now, in years past, Brad has controlled the coin of destiny, and I am always more than a bit skeptical of his process, but he swears by it.
You've flipped a few times here or there.
He says, my methods get results. Those
That's
results
right.
usually favor Brad, but what are you going to do?
I still want to say the integrity of the game is far more important to me than any individual victory or loss on my part. So
You say that, and then, we watched all these Star Wars movies, and I know the evil that's in your heart. I know how compelled you were by the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Brad.
Can we watch Rise of Skywalker and just crap all over it sometimes?
Do a bad movie bonus? Yeah, I would love that.
I really just
off-season movie.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, before we get into the bracket, I do want to say this bracket is available for you to follow along with. What we really love is when people download our bracket from our site, filmwhiskey.com. Fill out your own bracket. Let us know what movie from this list of 32 would be your champion. You can hashtag us. You can at us on social media. Let us know who your champion is. Again, our website is filmwhiskey.com. You will see the season 9 bracket right up top in the banner.
Now, this is the Film and Whiskey podcast. In addition to our bracket, we are going to be reviewing some whiskey out of the West Fork Whiskey Company, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana, as my mother-in-law calls it, Indianapolis. And so we're going to be drinking their bottled and bond wheated, and then 2 expressions from another brand that they have. The
label,
sure. Another label, that's a better way. The Old Hamer. I'm really excited to drink these today, Bob.
I am too, Brad. Today we're going to focus just on this West Fork whiskey, the bottled and bond wheated, and then on part 2 of the bracket, we'll dive into both of those Old Hamers. Here's what the deal is, folks. If you are a distillery out there, we are not a pay-to-play podcast. We don't ask for money, and we certainly don't give reviews for money. But I will say, if you send Brad and I each 3 full bottles of whiskey, as opposed to like one tiny sample, we will absolutely give your brand prime exposure on the bracket episodes. So I want to say thank you, West Fork Whiskey, for not being stingy. We love a good non-stingy brand.
Yeah, scratch my back, Bob. You know what I'll do.
I'll drink your whiskey.
That's
how that expression goes, right?
Dude, I am ready for this. Let's get into the first round of our bracket episode.
Yeah, Brad, I'm excited to dive into, man. Why don't we do this? As we introduce our brackets, it's broken up into quadrants, like any good bracket is. And typically, Brad likes to name the quadrants based on just whatever's on his mind that day. They never, ever associate with anything that actually came out of our season. So, Brad, I just realized the day that we're recording this, we're a couple weeks ahead. I sent you just now a list of 6 different celebrities that have birthdays today. Should we name our quadrants after these random happy birthday celebrities?
We should. I think it's a wonderful idea. Today is May the 14th. And with it being that day, I'm going to start us off. We're going to be in the George Lucas bracket.
George Lucas. Best known for the film American Graffiti and nothing else. He is celebrating his 81st birthday today. Happy birthday, Georgie boy.
You said American Graffiti. You seem to forget about THX 1138.
I did. I did forget about that.
Slightly less popular than American Graffiti, but still a huge impact on cinema.
Huge, Brad. And that's befitting of this quadrant that we're in, the Lucas quadrant. Why don't we go ahead and start with our first overall matchup here, featuring our top seed, the movie Whiplash. Brad, I don't think I would have picked Whiplash as the number 1 seed if you just asked me to name what movie would be number 1. But it's one of those films that's like, it's so perfectly made that even though I don't think it was either one of our actual number one films, it still got the highest overall point total here.
Yeah, and it makes sense, dude. Like, this movie hits on so many different cylinders. The performances are like spot on, pitch perfect. And it asks like a really interesting question in a world where like hustle culture is a thing. Mm-hmm. This movie is asking like, is it all worth it? What are you willing to sacrifice for greatness? And I think that's a question that our culture is kind of struggling with. So, Whiplash, phenomenal movie.
It's going up against the number 32 overall seed, Joker. Now, before the DC fanboys come for us, I have to say I liked Joker a lot better this time around than I remembered liking it. And I don't think any movie in our ranking got lower than like a 6.5 or 7 on average. We had a lot of good movies this year. Joker just got the lowest score. And you know what, Brad? I don't really know that there's a lot of conversation to happen here about this matchup. Whiplash is quite simply a better movie than Joker.
I really wish that Joaquin Phoenix, when he's on the tram with the bros, the finance bros, I really just wish he walked up to them and like slapped them in the face and was like, "Not quite my time."
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hit. All right, Whiplash is moving on into the round of 16. Let's get into the real meat here, Brad. We're looking at the number 16 overall seed, Ratatouille, up against the number 17 seed, Spotlight. Boy, oh boy, could we have picked two movies that are more thematically different than Ratatouille and Spotlight. I'm curious to hear, Brad, what you thought of both of these movies, because as I recall, Ratatouille was a little further down your heart list than I would have expected.
Yeah, Ratatouille, I did not see it when it came out. It wasn't like a highlight of the Pixar experience for me. I still really like this movie. Like, it is still a solid Pixar film, which makes it better than like 80% of all other animated films. Spotlight, I really, really enjoyed. It was well made. The pacing was really well done. This was one of the hardest matchups for me, not even thematically, because obviously there's like, we should probably make the movie about exposing child predators, move on. That's probably a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do that, Bob. I chose Ratatouille.
I did too. And it's hard because I think in that episode we said Spotlight is kind of hitting the ceiling of what this kind of movie can do. And that's like a really commendable thing. But it's like a perfectly 8.5 movie. And I think Ratatouille is kind of like a movie that might have an overinflated reputation now, but is still just like, even with flaws, at least a 9 for me. So Ratatouille is moving on for me. And that takes us to our next matchup, the number 9 overall seed, 1917, up against the number 24 seed, Her. Thoughts, Brad?
This was a harder matchup for me than I thought, a 15 spot difference would give us. I enjoyed Her. It made me think. It was interesting. I think Joaquin Phoenix is excellent. I think our girl ScarJo is incredible. What a great voice performance from her. At the end of the day, like 1917 is such a grand, ambitious movie. I had to move it on. I don't know, man. Like, was there any qualms in your heart about moving 1917 on, or did you want Her to go further?
I remember liking Her a lot when I saw it when I was 23 or whatever. And I think it played better in the movie theater because it is a slow movie. And I think sometimes when you're like in a theater and kind of forced to reckon with a movie on its own terms and don't have the distractions, it works better. I found it to be a little slow this time. Like, I found it to be quite boring at parts. And that sucked because I like what the movie does overall. I just think 1917 is better. And so, that's the third favorite in a row to move on to the round of 16. And that takes us to our last matchup in the Lucas quadrant. The number 8 overall seed, La La Land, up against the number 25 seed, The Help. I do not imagine that this is a hard decision for you, Brad. It was a much harder decision for me.
Oh, get out of here, dude.
I like The Help. I know that it's problematic. It's a good movie. And Viola Davis is incredible.
The Help
In fact,
is this year's Green Book.
Yeah, I mean that's 100% what it is. But they're both good movies. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like The Help. It's no La La Land.
I think La La Land is a movie that for some people it's like this is a masterpiece, and for me it's like it is reaching for masterpiece, and I just don't think we make human beings like this anymore. Like Ryan Gosling is never going to be Gene Kelly or Donald O'Connor, or and so I think the fact that it can't quite hit those heights for me. Some days I'm like La La Land's a 9, and other days I look at La La Land and I'm like it's a 7. And so I will tell you straight up, my first draft of my bracket, I moved on The Help. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to put La La Land here, but I do think it's going to kind of meet a buzzsaw for me in 1917 in the next round.
Yeah, that's pretty wild to me, Bob, because at the end of the day, like, you are correct. We don't make Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire's anymore. Like that, like Ginger Rogers just isn't coming out of nowhere to be the greatest dancer of the generation. It's not going to happen. Which means if you're going to make a musical, you have to make it about the story and about the human experience. And I think that's why La La Land sticks out for me. So we can have that argument next round. I'm just letting you know, La La Land is a perfect modern masterpiece.
Did you give it a 10?
Musical.
If you didn't give it a 10, you gave it a 9.5. I know how much you love that movie.
I'm pretty positive I gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'm just not there, man. But you know what? It's good enough to move on to the round of 16, and that gives us our first 4 entries in the round of 16. Whiplash, Ratatouille, 1917, and La La Land. 4 damn good movies, if I may say so myself, Brad.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. I was looking at our, let's see, it's 32, 16, 8. My top 8 could be winners of just about any season. This was the hardest Elite 8 I think I've ever had.
All right, well, we're going down to the next bracket. If you're following along, it's the bottom left bracket, which we are naming what?
That's up to you, Bob. I named the Lucas Quadrant. Where are you at?
Well, we are wishing
other celebrities.
We're wishing a happy 56th birthday to Cate Blanchett today, one of my favorite actresses. So we're going to be down here in the Blanchett bracket, Brad, and we're looking at the number 4 overall seed Parasite up against the number 29 seed Ford v Ferrari. Now, I will say this. I've said it many times on the podcast, Brad. Parasite is a movie that has been forever spoiled for me because of my awful viewing experience the first time. I do think that if it comes down to like a 1917 versus Parasite 2019 matchup, I still think I like 1917 better. However, Ford v Ferrari is a very 7 out of 10 movie.
Yep. Which made me sad. It was a movie that, 2019 was just such a great year for movies. So many of the Best Picture nominees I wanted to see, with Ford v Ferrari being one of them. It's pretty mid.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fun dad movie that has too many like YouTubeable moments for me to really like love it.
2019 was such a good year for movies that we're in our 5th matchup in this bracket, and we've already had 4 of the Best Picture nominees from 2019 in these 10 films. Like, that's insane, dude.
It's really nuts. I really think, we talk about different years being incredible for film. This is going to be one of them in the history books.
All right, so Parasite is moving on into the round of 16. Pretty drama-free so far, Brad. I need you to hate me for some reason, or this episode's going to get boring very quickly. All right, the next matchup is the number 13 seed, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, against the 20 seed, District 9. Now, this is a really intriguing matchup because it's like, we finally found something that the sci-fi and comic book nerds can argue over, right? Like, these movies feel not necessarily related to each other, but kind of like they're made for the same general crowd of people. And
Totally.
District 9 was an interesting rewatch for me. I hadn't seen it in probably at least 10 years. I think it holds up really freaking well. It's just not a 10. And Spider-Man was interesting to me because I remember not liking it that much at all when I saw it, and it boosted its score all the way up to like a 9 for me. So I'm pretty torn on these two, Brad.
Yeah, this feels like the closest matchup so far, where I really enjoyed District 9. I really enjoyed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I enjoyed them at a similar enough level that I'm kind of like, well, do I want space aliens or animated just madness?
Mm-hmm.
That feels like the vibe check for me. I think I'm going to go with space aliens, Bob.
Ooh, I picked Spider-Man. So that means, Brad, that it is time for us to split the vote here with the Coin of Destiny. Folks, welcome to the Coin of Destiny on Film and Whiskey. This is perhaps
you're reintroducing the whole show.
This is perhaps the best feature we have ever featured on this show. Brad has a big old brass coin he's about to flip. The way this works is the higher seeded film gets heads, the lower seeded film gets tails, and the loser gets eliminated from existence. We forgot to mention that, Brad. Our operative MO is if this film survives the apocalypse, which of these two films should move on, right?
Yeah, which one is getting cast into the fiery inferno?
All right, so Spider-Man will be heads, District 9 tails. Brad, flip that coin.
Bob, I have flipped onto heads, which means Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has escaped annihilation.
For now.
Are you much of a annihilationist, Bob? How do you feel about God destroying the souls of the unworthy?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm big into soul destruction, Brad. You know, it just sounds cooler. It's more metal that way.
It is a little more metal that way.
So now we have the matchup of parasites and spiders in the round of 16. We're going to move on into our next matchup, the number 12 seed Inside Out versus the 21 seed Zodiac. Unfortunately, I think that this matchup deserves more discussion than it's going to get, but I also know that you both like Inside Out more than I do and dislike Zodiac more than I do. So this seems like this was one of your easier choices in the entire bracket.
My passions run hot, Bob. Yeah, I mean, if you want moody Gyllenhaal, sure, Zodiac's a good film. Not compelling enough to beat Inside Out.
All right, let me make a matchup of just moments from these two movies, because I think this would be a better matchup. The hey Jake Gyllenhaal, come down in my basement with me scene in Zodiac versus Bing Bong flinging himself off the back of the wagon in Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Oh man, it's easily. At least a comparable level of well-made sequence to me.
Yeah, no, those are both great sequences that stir the emotions. I'm going with Bing Bong, Bing Bong, Bing Bong,
Bing Bong, the real MVP. All right, Bing Bong and the film Inside Out are moving on into the round of 16, and that brings us to our last matchup in the Blanchett quadrant. The number 5 overall seed, The Holdovers, versus the 28 seed Argo. Now, Brad, I will say, even though this is our 5th overall seed and thus very highly ranked, Holdovers did not quite crack the top tier of films for you on your heart list, which I thought was a little surprising because we both came out to a 9.5 or a 10 on this movie. Such a good movie.
I believe a 9.5. Yeah, okay. Dude, The Holdovers is an incredible movie. It is an instant Christmas classic, in my opinion. I'm trying to remember what I gave it. Let's see. You were at a 10 out of 10, Bob. I was at a 9 out of 10.
Oh.
So, yeah, for me, The Holdovers, it does everything you want it to do. I think that, what is his name? Angus Tully. What's the actor?
Dominic Sessa.
Thank you. Dominic. My boy Dommy, it's his first movie. And we can tell that it is his first movie. And that's nothing on him. He does a very admirable job. I think it does hold the movie back a little bit.
All right, well, you're wrong. But I think that you are correct enough that we can agree that it's going to defeat Argo here. Argo is a very competently made Hollywood movie that, upon rewatch, I'm very surprised that this thing won Best Picture. Good movie. I would not say that it's anything special, Fair?
Yeah, totally. I don't, yeah. There's just certain movies that maybe it made sense in the era for it to win that award. It's a good, fun movie that I'm not sure how it won Best Picture.
All right, so we have our first 8 entrants into the round of 16. Brad, have you been keeping track here?
I sure have. We have Whiplash, Ratatouille, 1917, La La Land, Parasite, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Inside Out, and The Holdovers.
Brad, I think it's time that we take a break here as we're in between the round. Let's try our whiskey for the day. West Fork, bottled and bond, weeded. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
All right, everybody. So this whiskey, West Fork Weeded Bottled and Bond, obviously is coming to us at 100 proof, as all bottled and bond products do. We don't have a mash bill here, Bob. We just know that this is weeded, which I would assume means the second highest grain in this is wheat. That's about it.
I'll tell you what, man.
That's
this
all I
is
know.
why you podcast with old Bob Book. I have a mash bill for you.
Oh, they don't have it on the website. So
Well, they found it on Breaking Bourbon somehow. So once again, we are eternally indebted to Breaking Bourbon. The mash bill listed there is 73% corn, 17% wheat, and 10% rye. So actually a little bit higher rye content than I was expecting. West Fork is the distillery on this. So they're based in Indiana, but they are not sourcing from that large juggernaut of an Indiana distillery. This is a smaller operation that was started in 2014 by 3 Indiana natives, and we are trying, as Brad said, I would say like their flagship bourbon here. This is a 4-year-old bottled and bond, weeded. Brad, as our listeners may or may not know, bottled and bond is a distinction given by the government, and there are a lot of regulations on it, right? So it has to be the product of 1 distilling season. It has to be at least 4 years old. It has to be bottled at 100 proof. It has to be housed in a government bonded warehouse. So, this was established way back in the late 1800s when you could just bottle a bunch of hooch and make people go blind. And it was a very good thing. Now it's just a nice little thing to slap on your label to show that you've put time and care and effort into making your whiskey. I'm super excited, man. I've never tried anything from this brand. Have you?
I have not. This is my first exposure.
All right, man, let's dive in. What are you picking up on the nose of this West Fork bottled and bond weeded bourbon?
Honestly, Bob, this smells very young to me.
Oh, interesting.
It has the craft vibe, which sometimes is good, sometimes is not good. I'll let you decide how I feel about it. I smell sawdust and corn and youth, like a street youth. 6 out of 10, Bob.
I smell street youths on this. I think it's a little bit better than that, Brad. And I'm getting an interesting note. You ever make I don't know how you cook your pancakes in the pan, but I like to use butter in my pan with my pancakes. And when like a little piece of the pancake kind of breaks off and you just kind of let that small bit of batter get a little over toasted or overcooked because you're busy flipping the big pancakes, it smells like that. It smells kind of like a roux that's been overcooked a bit. You get that butteriness. You get a little bit of like a burnt scent as well. And I get some saline on it. And that's in addition to your kind of regular bourbony notes. I think it's intriguing. I don't necessarily think that this is knocking my socks off, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
I think on the palate, the corn really comes through. It, to me, just tastes very young, which I know that this is 4 years old. It's very young, very crafty. It kind of has a little bit of a vanilla vibe. It reminds me a little bit of like Kix cereal. There's a little bit of a sugary coating to a very bland ball of grain underneath.
Yep.
I don't like this, Bob. I'm just going to say it. 5.5.
Wow. Oh, I'm sorry, West Fork, for Brad's lack of kindness towards you.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't think this is a great whiskey. However, it's funny. Like,
Brad is being so mean. I also, too, do not think this is a great whiskey.
Well, I mean, I think it's a pretty good whiskey, though. Like, some whiskeys are great, and most whiskeys are good, and some whiskeys are bad. And this is definitely not bad to me. So, like, here's where I'm at on it, though. We've been saying for multiple episodes, like, oh, this whiskey reminds me of the kind of whiskeys that we drink at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. This whiskey reminds me of the whiskeys we drink at the Ohio Distillers Festival. Like, there is something about, like, it's a startup distillery. Their stuff is just coming to age. It still has a little bit of youthfulness on it, for sure. And it's a little bit thinner and just not as bold, not as syrupy on the palate. But it's still, like, I like that kind of whiskey because it feels like you're kind of getting in on the ground floor of something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to put this up against anything from like a well-aged Kentucky stock, but I'm still going to give it a 6.5 on the palate, Brad.
I am going to be honest with you, Bob. If you start comparing things to the Ohio Craft Whiskey Festival, finish is Taste of Sour Wheat, and I'll give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, again, I don't find this to be as unpalatable as you. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to give it a 6.5 again on the finish. Overall balance, if you're reviewing movies on the Roger Ebert, like 4-star scale, this is like a 2.5 out of 4 for me. It's like right in that 6.5 range. I think I'll probably go there again with this one, Brad.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 on balance. For it not being my favorite craft whiskey, like the experience is palatable and straightforward. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10 on balance. Value-wise, they are selling this for $45, which I do think is a very reasonable price. I have seen some craft distilleries out there that I'm not going to name selling whiskey much worse than this for $80 to $140.
Yep.
So like
good on them,
$45 is an accurate place to sell this at. I'm still going to say, for what you are getting in the bottle, I think you could spend $45 elsewhere and get much better value. But at the end of the day, they are pricing it at the right point. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 on value.
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I just have a soft spot for the little guy in areas like this. I work in marketing and I work with a lot of startup companies. I've worked with a coffee company for a couple of years. And like one of the things that we always get is like, why is your coffee more expensive than insert giant brand? And it's like, because they make $3 billion a year and they own all their facilities and they own farms. And like they have completely streamlined the entire process of coffee growing, importing, roasting. Like it costs
they
money.
Are the oil baron of the coffee world.
Yeah, I mean, like it costs money when you're a little guy and you're trying to break into the industry. And I think to price this at $45 is actually quite generous of them to do. I'm going to give it a 7 here. Brad, that takes me to a 33.5 out of 50. Where are you falling on this one?
Not terribly lower than you, but 28.5 out of 50.
All right, so that takes us to a 62 out of 100 or a 31 out of 50. I think this is a good baseline place to start with West Fork. I have definitely tried the other two Old Hamers, and I think they are a step up from here, Brad. So I'm excited to dive into those two in our next episode.
Yeah, I will say, Bob, I have drank all 3 of them before this. I knew going into it I did not like this bottled and bond weeded. And just in case there is somebody out there who listens to this episode and not the next, although that would be just asinine of you not to finish out the bracket episode. I want you to know the Old Hamers cast strength and rum finish are really, really good.
They're really
and
good.
I like what they're doing at West Fork. I'm excited to review those in the next episode. The bottom we did just didn't quite do it for me, Bob.
That's okay, man. You know what does do it for me, Brad?
What's that, Robert?
The season 9 bracket challenge.
Is it getting slapped in the face by J.K. Simmons?
Oh, a huge turn on. Let's get back into that bracket, Brad.
Let's get to it, man.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
All right, so we're getting back into this round of 32. We are in the top right quadrant of our bracket, better known as, Brad?
This is going to be known as the Robert Zemeckis Memorial Bracket.
Bobby Z,
Yeah,
our favorite
Bobby Z.
director.
He might not be passed away. However, his film career seems to be.
Did you see his most recent film, Here, with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, where they're digitally de-aged for the whole film?
No.
Listen, when
it
I
just
tell
sounds terrible.
Brad, unwatchable for 98% of the movie. And then the last scene of the movie made me cry so hard that I cried the whole way home from them. It was unbelievable how much I turned around on that movie in the final 2 minutes.
Yeah. So you went
Bobby
from
Z,
like
baby.
a 5 out of 10 to a 7.
I went from like a 3 to like a 5.5. But still,
Okay.
it's a big jump.
That's almost as big as my jump on Eternal Sunshine. So
Yeah. All right. Well, so in the Bobby Z bracket, we're starting with the number 2 overall seed, Oppenheimer, versus the number 31 seed, The Big Short. I think the more interesting thing to talk about here is Oppenheimer, obviously, Brad, Best Picture winner. One of only, I think, 2 movies to hit all 4 of our criteria for inclusion in the canon here. Oppenheimer's interesting because I do think that it's messy, and I do think that it's shaggy, and I do think that it's a movie that is really saved by the editor, Jennifer Lame. Like, it is one of the best edited movies I've ever seen. I think Nolan gets a lot of credit, where a lot of credit should go to the editor. And I've cooled just a bit on Oppenheimer to the point where I'm like, I think maybe it's a 9.5, but it's a monumental 9.5.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, dude. The thing was a freaking juggernaut in American culture, which is pretty crazy for a 3-hour biopic drama. Like, it still kind of blows my mind how much power Nolan has over American cinema, but it's well deserved. He, a way long time ago, probably in like season 3 or 4, when we did Interstellar, I just said, I was like, listen, man, he swings for the fences every single time, and he has a crew around him that makes it come close. So it makes sense to me that this film did so well. But man, oh man, it's wild that this type of movie did so well at the awards with the American public. Like, everybody loved this movie.
The Big Short, meanwhile, is a movie that just did not seem to work at all for you. I liked it, but I do think that it's just, frankly, not nearly as good as Oppenheimer is.
Yeah, Oppenheimer is the clear victor here, which takes us to our next matchup.
Well, hold on. I have one question for you, Brad.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Are you jacked that Oppenheimer moved on to the next round?
Buddy, I'm jacked to the tits!
We had to give it one more jack to the tits before we sent it off into the fiery furnace.
What a great line.
Oh, it's amazing. Now, I'm sorry. Please proceed now that you're jacked to the tits.
Which makes a lot of sense for the next movie I'm about to announce.
Yep.
Bob, we are talking the number 15 seed, Wolf of Wall Street, going up against the number 18 seed, Skyfall.
This is one of the harder ones for me. I don't think Skyfall is as successful for you as it is for me. I like James Bond. I think it's a very handsomely mounted film. Wolf of Wall Street is like it's like the White Album. It's like
handsomely mounted sounds like a very British way of saying well hung.
Handsomely Mounted is exactly what happens in multiple scenes of Wolf of Wall Street.
Sure. Oh, jeez.
Wolf of Wall Street reminds me of the White Album in that it's like we made 50 songs and we're going to just throw them all on an album and 35 of them are classics and 10 of them are okay and 5 of them suck. Like that's Wolf of Wall Street for me. I actually
what scene in Wolf of Wall Street is your number 9? Because it's not even a song. It's like a concept, weird avant-garde thing. So where are you at on Wolf of Wall Street with its avant-gardeness?
It's got to be the scene where they're on Quaaludes at the party and then everything goes into slow motion for a minute and then Jonah Hill wanders down and has his dick out.
Yes.
That's got to be the Revolution 9 of Wolf of Wall Street. Brad, I picked Skyfall here, but it's because it's so razor thin for me. I don't really care what moves on here. They're both really good movies, and I think that Oppenheimer is going to defeat either of them.
Yeah, I picked Wolf of Wall Street. I am with you. I think Skyfall is a good competitor for Wall Street. Daniel Craig nails it. I think that it makes a lot of sense to pick that here.
All right, well, it's time for us to flip the coin of destiny. So heads will be Wolf of Wall Street, tails will be Skyfall. Brad, flip that coin.
Bob, we are on a streak. Heads has won again, which means the Wolf of Wall Street has moved on. I'm not going anywhere.
You have such a weird pronunciation of that title. The Wolf of Wall Street.
It's Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. All right, dude. Let's move down into our next matchup. The number 10 film, How to Train Your Dragon, versus the number 23 movie, Moneyball.
Bob, I was a little surprised at both of these rankings. Yeah. I did not expect How to Train Your Dragon to be this high. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect Moneyball to be quite this low.
You like Moneyball less than me. And I think that I've just kind of shared with you again that it has the like spotlight syndrome of the ceiling on the way this movie is made is like a perfect 8.5. Like it will never achieve higher than an 8.5, but it is like a great 8.5. I just think How to Train Your Dragon is more successful at what it's trying to do. Like it is a perfect 9 or a 9.5 for me. And especially with that crappy remake coming out soon, I want to hang on to this one for as long as we can, Brad.
Do you think it's going to be garbage?
Oh, absolutely. The early reports on people who have seen it has said that it's like in the 90s, this director, Gus Van Sant, did a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And the whole premise was like, it's a shot for shot remake. Like we have set the camera up in exactly the same way. And they said that this is basically that. But like Roger Deakins helped make this version and did not help make the new version. So, you know, how good can it be?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you get Deakins on it, you know, maybe it has a chance. That's unfortunate, man. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I think that this, you know, we compared it to Avatar a few times. I think that a live action remake of this movie actually could make sense. You just have to do it right. You have to cast it well. You have to have a good cinematographer. Yeah. And too often, these are money grabs, which means they're not going to hire the best crew. Yep. Right? You're not going to get Deakins or like, I don't know. Like, could you imagine if like Denis took a swing at this movie? Like, that would be freaking cool if he made a version of How to Train Your Dragon.
Alas, he did not. But I do think it's good enough to move on to the round of 16, Brad.
Yeah, totally. It is better than Moneyball. Moneyball's a perfect dad movie, man.
Yeah, it's going into the fiery furnace. And as Brad Pitt says in that movie, how can you not be romantic about dragons? So we're moving that on to the next round. And that takes us to what is for sure Brad's favorite matchup and the easiest one for him in this entire bracket.
Witness me!
We're talking about the number 7 seed Mad Max Fury Road up against the 26 seed Creed. Now listen, we both know what's moving on here. I think Creed's a good movie, and I was shocked at how flawed it was on rewatch for me this time around.
Yeah, it's a good film. It comes nowhere close to the moniker of modern masterpiece. Like, Mad Max does some damage in my bracket, Bob.
I'm sure it does.
I still I can't believe I watched that film twice in a day. And yet when I think about it, I'm like, man, I should probably go watch Mad Max again.
Well, I guess it's moving on here, Brad. And that means that we have our
absolutely.
first 4 entries into the round of 16 in this side of the bracket. But we've got to finish out our final quadrant. And today we are celebrating the 54th birthday of the director Sofia Coppola. So we're down here in the Coppola region, Brad. And we're starting out with a movie that I think Sofia Coppola would really love because it has the same kind of vibe and rhythm as Lost in Translation. It's my personal favorite movie of this entire bracket. It's the number 3 overall seed, Past Lives, going up against the number 30 seed, John Wick. John Wick, a good movie that I liked a lot. It is no Past Lives.
I really wish that we had the crossover where like John Wick is like in a murder spree and it just so happens to like coincide with them drinking at the bar in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the crossover film that we all need and deserve, where whatever the Korean gentleman's name is, his childhood love is murdered, and so now he becomes the new John Wick.
So would it be called Past Wick? Is that the name of the mashup?
Past Wicks.
Past Wicks. Can we say goodbye to John Wick?
Yeah, we can. We could shoot it in the head, Bob.
He says, "I'm thinking I'm back," and I say, "Au contraire." Go into the
Dude,
fire.
What a terrible line.
Oh, you're ridiculous.
That is a line written by a stuntman.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was a good movie. Past Lives is way better. Past Lives moves on into the round of 16. Now, Brad, before we move on, I got to ask you about your Past Lives ranking. You've got it at number 7, which is a very admirable ranking. It is behind Mad Max Fury Road for you. It's behind Parasite, Oppenheimer, La La Land, Whiplash, and a movie that has yet to be named. Is it just that you don't think it's as good? Is it just that it didn't capture your heart as much as some of these? Where are you at on Past Lives?
I was going to say, it's a heart ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back at my list, I could maybe move Mad Max up a few slots, maybe to the 4 slot and drop Oppenheimer and Parasite back. Dude, these top 6 movies, all of them could probably replace each other at number 1.
But not Past Lives, because that's at 7.
Yeah, Past Lives is the first one that's just outside that doesn't hit that, man, this could be my number 1 movie. Man. On any given day, I could look at Parasite, Oppenheimer, Whiplash, and be like, yes, this is the number 1 movie of the season. I think the highest I could go for Past Lives would be 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really love Past Lives. I think it's a beautiful story. I think it asks phenomenally important questions about the human experience and how we go about our lives. It's just not quite there on Mad Max has the holy shit, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a movie screen factor. Past Lives doesn't quite hit that level of spectacle.
All right, Brad, we're moving Past Lives on, even though you gave it a 10 out of 10 in the episode. It's funny how that works, isn't it? You can say something is a 10 out of 10, but it still doesn't crack the top 5 or whatever for you on your heart list.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's wild, dude. I think I gave a decent amount of 10s this year. I try to be stingy with my 10s, but then I get excited about things, and, here we are with multiple 10 out of 10s. Great movie, Bob.
Now, Brad, these next couple matchups, I think, are the ones that we're going to start getting contentious on. We've got the number 14 seed, Dune Part 2, up against the 19 seed, Jojo Rabbit. Now, I know how much you love Jojo Rabbit, and I don't have your list pulled up in front of me, but you ranked it pretty high. I'm just way cooler on Jojo Rabbit than you are. I think if you looked at the spectrum of what most of film Twitter thinks about Jojo Rabbit, you and I are only a tiny sliver apart from each other. I actually like this movie way more than the general population, it seems, but way less than you.
It's wild to me that people don't like this movie. I don't understand it. People are so dumb.
That's it. It was your number 8 ranked movie. It was the first movie after Jojo Rabbit or after Past Lives for you.
Yeah. I love Jojo Rabbit. I think it's a great film. I think the comedy is really well done. And I think when you can have great comedy with some great physical, gags paired with a really heartwarming, heart-rending story and some awesome performances. This movie is incredible. The two child actors do a great job. Scarlett Johansson is stunningly good in this movie. The amount of conflict she has within her soul as she's trying to navigate a wildly tense and unfriendly, hostile world is incredible. So yeah, Jojo Rabbit is the choice here.
I'm going Dune, baby. I'm going Lisan Al Gaib. I want him riding a sandworm into the next round, Brad. Screw that kid, Jojo. Throw him into the fiery furnace with the rest of the Nazis. I want the Lisan Al Gaib.
Hey, man, he's not a Nazi at the end of the movie. He's got
and you know what?
Girlfriend.
Honestly, Paul Atreides kind of is a Nazi at the end of the movie. So, we're just going to ignore that.
We all know where Bob stands.
Dune Part 2 is moving on for me, Brad, and that means that we have a coin flip in our future here. Dune, as the higher ranked movie, is going to be heads. Jojo Rabbit is tails. Brad, flip the coin of destiny.
Man, this has been a episode of heads. And yet here we are with tails coming up on top.
I disagree.
Jojo Rabbit is moving on.
Veto power needs to be instituted here. I cannot believe we are moving Jojo freaking Rabbit on over Dune Part 2.
Dude, here's the thing. I could show you my bracket. I literally wrote down Jojo, and then I thought about it, and I was like, Dune's probably the better movie. And I scribbled out Jojo, and I wrote Dune. And then, literally as we started, I was looking at it, and I'm like, nah, Jojo's moving on.
Well, maybe I can get back at you here with this next one, because we've got the number 11 overall seed, Everything Everywhere All at Once, up against the number 22 seed, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I want to bury the lead here a little bit, Brad, because I know you're chomping at the bit. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is where I'm going to start. A movie that we both like and that both of us agree is I don't understand why people think this is Tarantino's best movie. It just rambles and then it ends. And the ending is so good that people forget how much it rambles. For some people, that works. I think for both of us, it was a little bit... Well, let's see. Where was it on your list, Brad?
I mean, I gave Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a 9 out of 10, Bob.
Oh, yeah. You have it at number 9 on the season. That's
and I gave it at number
me.
9. I don't know how it got down to 22. Did you rank this number 30? In your
pretty
list?
Close, man. Yeah, I don't have my ranking pulled up in front of me, but it was real low.
Yeah, I was shocked to see it here. I was also shocked to see Everything Everywhere All at Once at 11. I knew that you did not like that nearly as much as I did. I don't know, man. This matchup befuddled me because in another world, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood could have made my top 8. I really liked that film. I think Tarantino nails it on the pacing. That it's not a perfect movie, but there's so much to love here. And Brad Pitt zoned out on shrooms, killing Austin Butler and company is incredible. And you have Leonardo DiCaprio burning a girl to death with a flamethrower in a pool.
You sure do.
And then casually talking about it with his neighbor 10 minutes later.
Crucially, though, it features 0 bagels that suck in all of the universe around them. Now, Brad, I know that you're looking at this ranking. I know that Everything Everywhere All at Once was your number 1 ranked film of the season, which is freaking wild, but you are entitled to your opinion. But as you can see, it's pretty low on my list. It's a movie that I've kind of cooled on and really turned on over the last couple years. I just don't think it's going to age very well. I think that the emotional moments in this movie work perfectly, but there is a lot of silliness that you have to wade through to get there. However, I moved Everything Everywhere on in this round. I'm assuming you did too, Brad.
That's right, you did. Bob, you gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So it's not like you hate this movie.
No.
It very clearly works for you. Just not on the level that people who understand cinema do, like me.
You have been known for your extensive knowledge of the history of movies, Brad. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once moves on into the next round, which takes us to our very last matchup. And then, Brad, I have an idea to share with you. We're talking about the number 6 overall seed, Godzilla -1, up against the 27 seed, Prisoners. I'm pretty bummed about Prisoners, man. I remember this movie being great, and it is simply pretty good. Fair?
Yeah, totally fair. It's a pretty good movie that does not pull any punches in trying to make you feel terrible, and definitely doesn't give you any room to feel good about the human condition. Not a fan, Bob. I like it, and I really don't like it.
Which means Godzilla -1 is moving on? Question mark.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Do you want to hear a fun story?
Please.
Yesterday, Haley and I were doing our anatomy scan to see the gender of our third child.
Hey, congratulations, man.
Yeah.
I already knew, but Film and Whiskey Nation did not. So, you know.
Yeah, we're having a third baby. It's super exciting. There were certain points where they're like measuring the blood flow in the baby to make sure, you know, everything's moving properly and doing well. Well, it doesn't show up as red. It shows up as blue. And so it's at a certain point, my in utero child like lit up in blue, and we had just watched Godzilla -1 a few weeks ago. I was like, my baby's Godzilla.
Prepare for the nuclear blast to just come out of your wife's stomach. Yeah, dude.
Yes,
that's hilarious, man. All right, so on that weird note, Godzilla moves on into the next round, and that leaves us with our final list of 16 films. Now, Brad, we've never done this before, but we have a lot to get through here. We still have awards to give out. We have 2 whiskeys to give out. Typically, we divide this into 2 episodes, but we are only halfway through what we typically do in episode 1, and I think that we're running long, obviously. I think I should propose a 3rd episode of Bracket Challenge.
A 3rd episode.
I think let's stop here today, right? Let's take the round of 16, just the round of 16 in the next episode, and we'll knock out these whiskeys and some awards, and then we will proceed with our round of 8, round of 4 championship in the final episode. What do you say?
I love that idea, Bob. I am tired of talking to you.
I am too, man. We need a break. But before we get a break, let's get the final list of 16. Brad, can you share that list with our listeners?
We have Whiplash versus Ratatouille, 1917 versus La La Land, Parasite versus Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Inside Out versus The Holdovers, Oppenheimer versus Wolf of Wall Street, How to Train Your Dragon versus Mad Max Fury Road, Past Lives versus Jojo Rabbit, Everything Everywhere All at Once, facing off against the monster itself, Godzilla -1.
All right, folks. So what we're going to do is, today's Tuesday. On Friday, we will release part 2 of the Bracket Challenge, which is our round of 16. And then we'll come back after the weekend. We'll finish it out next Tuesday with the real final episode. You get 3 episodes for the price of 2, folks. Where else can you get that but Film and Whiskey? Join us on Friday for the next episode. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.